Billy Abbott sat at the corner booth of a quaint London cafe, the afternoon sun streaming through the windows and casting long shadows on the cobblestone street outside. It had been a long journey, but this trip, despite its hardships, was important. His mission, to repair his fractured relationship with his mother, Jill Abbott. For years, the tension between them had been a constant thorn in his side. He knew that the rift between them was deep, fueled by misunderstandings, secrets, and betrayals. Yet there was hope. Sally Spectra, his girlfriend, had encouraged him to make the journey, to try and fix what had been broken. Her belief in him had been unwavering, and that support meant the world to him. Sally, having been with him throughout the emotional rollercoaster that had led to this point, had insisted on coming along to London. However, her presence, for reasons both personal and emotional, had become more of a quiet anchor than an active part of the conversation between Billy and his mother. While Billy and Jill had faced their differences, it was clear that Sally too was grappling with her own emotions, things she hadn't shared openly with him yet. The past few months had been full of ups and downs for Sally. Billy could sense her inner turmoil, the way she would stare off into space when she thought no one was watching, lost in thoughts that she seemed unwilling to share. She was a strong woman, fiercely independent, but there were moments when her vulnerability surfaced, particularly when they were alone together. It had been a few days since Billy and Sally had returned to YandR City. While Billy felt a sense of relief from the tension in London, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. Sally had withdrawn further into herself, becoming more secretive, especially in the last couple of days. One evening, as they sat together in their apartment, Sally's gaze turned distant. Billy had been in the middle of a conversation when he noticed her stare becoming unfocused. His words faded away as he watched her, concern lining his face. "Sally, is everything okay?" he asked, his voice soft but filled with worry. Sally blinked and shook her head as if pulling herself out of a trance. She forced a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Yeah, of course," she replied, though the unease in her tone didn't escape him. Billy studied her, noticing how her hand absently rested on her stomach, a small movement that did not go unnoticed. He had seen this before, a gesture that felt out of place but was so subtle that it seemed like it might be nothing at all. His instincts told him that something was troubling her, something bigger than whatever had happened in London. "I'm fine, really," she said, though her words seemed hollow. Billy wasn't convinced, but he let it slide for the time being. He figured that perhaps she just needed time to process the emotional weight of their trip and the aftermath of her own personal challenges. Still, it nagged at him. Sally wasn't always one to keep secrets, but when she did, it was usually because she felt vulnerable or uncertain. As the days went on, Billy noticed Sally becoming increasingly distracted. She had been staying late at work, avoiding his calls, and when they did spend time together, she was distant. Something was clearly weighing on her, but she refused to open up about it. One morning, after a particularly restless night, Sally found herself staring at the small box in her bathroom drawer, the one that had been sitting there for days untouched. She had known for a while that something wasn't right. Her cycle had been irregular, and she couldn't ignore the creeping suspicion that something was changing inside her. At first, she tried to brush it off, thinking it was just stress from the trip or the emotional toll that Billy's reconciliation with Jill had taken on both of them. But as the days passed, her doubts grew. She couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more, something significant, going on in her body. Her hand trembled slightly as she opened the drawer, pulling out the pregnancy test she had secretly bought just days before. It wasn't something she had planned to face, at least not yet. She had hoped to talk to Billy about their future before anything like this came up, but now the uncertainty weighed on her like a heavy stone. The last time she had been in this position was with Adam, and the memories of that pregnancy, of the child they had lost, were still raw and fresh in her mind. It was a loss she hadn't fully healed from, and the thought of going through something like that again terrified her. Could she even bear it? Her mind raced with conflicting thoughts. What would Billy say? How would he react? He had just started to rebuild his relationship with his children, and the thought of adding another child into the mix was daunting. Would he even want to be a father again, especially now with everything else going on in his life? Sally's heart pounded in her chest as she stared at the test in her hand. The words seemed to blur before her eyes, the test feeling both like a lifeline and a burden she wasn't ready to bear. She could hear Billy's voice in her head, asking her what was wrong, but she couldn't answer him yet, not until she had answers of her own. As she sat there in the bathroom, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on her, her phone buzzed on the counter. It was Audra, a friend she had made in YandR City, someone who had always been there to lend an ear when Sally needed it. She had confided in Audra about her fears and her past, about the pain of losing her child with Adam, and about the anxiety she felt about potentially being pregnant again. Audra's message was simple but direct. Sally, you know I'm here for you, right? If you need someone to talk to, or if you want to take that test together, I'll be there. Sally stared at the screen, feeling a wave of gratitude for Audra's support, but also a deep sense of embarrassment. She wasn't ready to face the truth, not even with her friend by her side, but something about Audra's offer made her feel less alone in this moment, and that thought brought some comfort. Taking a deep breath, Sally dialed Audra's number. "I need help," she whispered when Audra answered. "Here's the first part of the expanded story. I'll continue with the second part in a subsequent message, carrying the narrative forward from where we left off." Sally's voice trembled slightly as she spoke to Audra, and though she tried to mask her emotions, the weight of the situation was undeniable. "I don't know what to do," she admitted, her breath shaky. "I think I might be pregnant." On the other end of the line, Audra's tone softened immediately, her voice filled with concern. "Sally, I'm so glad you called. We'll figure this out together. Just take a deep breath, all right? If you need me to, I'll come over and we'll do this together. You don't have to be alone." The words brought a small sense of relief to Sally's overwhelmed heart. Audra was a rock, always steady, always calm, and that was exactly what she needed in this moment. She closed her eyes, leaning against the bathroom counter, feeling a wave of exhaustion wash over her. "I don't even know how to tell Billy," Sally whispered, her voice a mere echo of the thoughts swirling in her mind. "What if he doesn't want another baby? What if he's not ready for this? I mean, he has teenagers. I can't even imagine how this would fit into his life right now." Audra's voice was patient but firm. "We'll cross that bridge when we get there, but first we need to find out what's going on. Don't overthink it. You're stronger than you think and you're not alone. We'll go together. If you want me to, I'll even buy the test for you." Sally hesitated for a moment, but the offer was comforting. She knew that Audra meant every word, and for once she didn't feel like she was carrying the burden alone. She agreed. "Okay, I think I'll take it, but I'll need you to be there when I do. I'm not sure I can face this on my own." "I'll be there," Audra promised. "Let me know when you're ready." After hanging up, Sally stood in the silence of the bathroom, her fingers tracing the edge of the pregnancy test box. The heaviness in her chest wouldn't lift. She couldn't help but wonder how this would change everything. The life she had started to build with Billy, their future, and most of all, the life growing inside her if the test proved what she feared. Hours later, Sally found herself meeting Audra outside her apartment, her hands tightly clutching the small bag that held the pregnancy test. She felt sick with anticipation and fear. Audra, seeing the turmoil in Sally's eyes, gently put a hand on her shoulder as they walked to the bathroom. "Everything will be okay," Audra reassured her, her voice calm and soothing. "No matter what the test says, we'll handle it. You're not facing this alone." They both sat on the edge of the bathtub, Sally holding the test in her hands as Audra looked on with a mixture of concern and solidarity. Sally could feel the seconds ticking away in the silence. Her heart raced, her mind a whirlwind of thoughts about Billy, about her past, about the baby she might or might not be carrying. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the results appeared. Sally's breath caught in her throat as she looked down at the test. She couldn't decipher the result immediately. There was a moment of pure silence as she stared, processing, letting the weight of the moment settle on her. Audra leaned forward, her voice barely above a whisper. "What does it say?" Sally felt a mixture of dread and hope as she turned the test in her hands, showing Audra the result. The two women looked at each other in shock and then at the test. For a long moment there was no sound, just the quiet of uncertainty hanging between them. "Well," Audra finally asked, her voice a little more urgent, "Sally, what does it mean?" Sally's mind raced. She could barely process the result in front of her. The lines were faint but clear enough to indicate a positive result. She felt like the world had stopped spinning for a brief moment, her emotions spiraling as she absorbed the reality of what she had just seen. "Oh my God," Sally whispered, her voice trembling. I'm pregnant." Audra exhaled slowly, taking a moment to gather her own thoughts. Okay, Sally, we can handle this. It's not the end of the world. We'll figure out what this means for you, for Billy, for your future. Sally felt her chest tighten as the weight of the news pressed down on her. But what does it mean for Billy? What if he doesn't want this? What if he doesn't want another child? Audra's hand gently squeezed Sally, offering reassurance. You don't know what he'll say until you tell him. Maybe he'll surprise you. Maybe he'll want this too. It's okay to be scared, Sally. You don't have to have all the answers right now. Sally nodded slowly, her mind still in a fog. It wasn't just about the test result, it was about everything that lay ahead. The possibility of a future that now seemed uncertain, the fears she carried, and the emotions she wasn't sure how to process. Later that evening, as Billy walked into the apartment, he noticed Sally sitting on the couch, her expression unreadable. He saw the pregnancy test on the coffee table in front of her and his stomach dropped. Something was wrong, he could feel it. Hey, he said cautiously, walking over to her. What's going on? What's with the test? Sally looked up at him, her eyes filled with both fear and uncertainty. She didn't know where to start or how to explain everything that had just transpired, but she knew one thing: she couldn't hide it any longer. Billy, she began softly, her voice trembling, I'm pregnant. Billy froze, the words hitting him like a wave. He had heard the words, but they didn't seem to make sense. He stood there for a moment, processing the shock, his heart pounding in his chest. You're pregnant. Sally nodded, her eyes welling up with tears. She didn't know what else to say. She didn't know how to explain the fear, the uncertainty, the overwhelming feelings of being completely unprepared for this moment. Billy sat down beside her, his hand reaching for hers. Sally, I don't know what to say. This is a lot to take in. Sally swallowed hard, looking at him through the tears in her eyes. I didn't know what to do. I'm scared, Billy. I don't know what this means for us. I don't even know if you want this, if you want another child. Billy paused, his thoughts swirling. He could see the fear in Sally's eyes and he could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him. He had been through so much in his life, and the thought of starting over with a new child was daunting. His own children were teenagers now, and he had spent years focused on his relationship with them, his work, and his own healing. But looking at Sally, he realized something. He realized that this wasn't just about him, this was about them, and for all the fear and uncertainty, there was something deep inside him that knew he didn't want to face this without her. He squeezed her hand gently. We'll figure this out, Sally. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm not going anywhere. We'll figure this out together. The words didn't erase the fear that clung to them both, but in that moment they shared a small spark of hope. Together, they would navigate this new chapter, whatever it may bring. If you enjoy Y&R spoilers, updates, and daily drama, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos.